The Perron family farmhouse, a decade of terror in Rhode Island for 10 years. The Perron family endured relentless attacks from entities that claimed their farmhouse long before they arrived. January 1971 brings hope to the Perron family as they arrive at their new home in Harrisville, Rhode Island. Roger and Carolyn Perron stand before a sprawling farmhouse set on 200 acres of countryside. Their 5 daughters, Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cindy, and April, gathered around them with excitement in their eyes. The structure dates back to the early 1700s, weathered by time but still standing, still offering shelter. 8 generations of families have called this place home. The Perrons know nothing of what those generations endured. They see only possibility. They sign the lease. They move in. They unpack their lives into rooms that have held secrets for centuries. Within days, the family realizes something is wrong. Objects vanish from where they were placed moments before, only to reappear in locations no one can explain. Cold spots move through the house like invisible currents, drafting through hallways and bedrooms without regard for the season or the sealed windows. In the kitchen, Carolyn watches a broom sweep across the floor on its own, moving with deliberate strokes as though guided by hands she cannot see. The girls begin reporting encounters that chill their parents to the core. A man floats above the floor in the upstairs hallway, his feet never touching the ground, his presence accompanied by the unmistakable stench of decay. An older woman leans over their beds at night, her face close enough that they can feel her breath, though she makes no sound and offers no explanation for why she watches them sleep. Carolyn Perron becomes the primary target of the activity. She experiences physical attacks that escalate in frequency and intensity. Slaps land across her face with force that leaves marks. Pinches appear on her arms and legs, delivered by fingers she cannot see. Her hair is yanked backward by unseen hands, pulling hard enough to make her cry out. The entity that attaches itself to her feels ancient, purposeful, and filled with rage. It wants the family gone. It wants Carolyn most of all. The farmhouse, the family comes to understand, is not inhabited by a single presence, but by 8 different spirits, each with its own history, its own unfinished business. Some are harmless, lingering without malice. Others are hostile. One towers above the rest in sheer malevolence, a dominant force the family comes to associate with a woman named Bathsheba Sherman. Bathsheba Sherman lived on the property in the early 1800s. Neighbors accused her of witchcraft, whispering stories that she sacrificed an infant to dark powers in exchange for eternal youth. Whether those accusations held truth or whether they reflected the paranoia of the era, the folklore persisted. Bathsheba reportedly hanged herself from a tree on the property, and locals believed she cursed the land before her passing, condemning anyone who dared call it home after her. The Perrons, upon learning this history, begin to understand the pattern. Family after family over the centuries met violent or mysterious ends on this land. The property has claimed lives, shattered minds, and driven people away. Now it turns its attention to them. Ed and Lorraine Warren arrive at the farmhouse after hearing of the Perron family's prolonged ordeal. Lorraine Warren, a clairvoyant whose abilities have been tested and documented across hundreds of cases, steps through the front door and immediately describes the weight of the spiritual activity inside as unlike anything she has encountered in her career. She senses multiple presences layered throughout the property, bound to it across centuries, unable or unwilling to move on. Ed Warren conducts his own investigation, speaking with each family member, documenting the phenomena, analyzing the patterns of activity. His conclusion confirms what the family has been living with. This is not a single haunting, but an infestation of entities, with one dominant inhuman intelligence directing the attacks against the family, particularly against Carolyn. He classifies the primary entity as demonic in nature, tied to the property through dark practices carried out generations earlier. Lorraine Warren conducts a séance in the farmhouse at Carolyn Perron's request. The family gathers, hoping to make contact with the dominant spirit, hoping to understand what it wants, hoping to find a way to coexist or to convince it to leave. What happens instead becomes one of the most terrifying moments in the Warren case files. Carolyn is taken over. Her chair begins spinning without anyone touching it. Her voice changes to something ancient and unrecognizable, a guttural tone that does not belong to the woman the family knows. She speaks in a language no one present understands, words that feel older than memory, older than the farmhouse itself. It takes multiple people to hold her still, to keep her from hurting herself or others. The entity demonstrates what it is capable of: direct possession of the mother of the family, the person it has been targeting all along. The children witness their mother become something unrecognizable, and the trauma of that night marks them for the rest of their lives. Roger Perron is furious with the Warrens for what he feels they have provoked. He demands they leave the property immediately. He refuses further paranormal investigation. He wants no more seances, no more contact with entities, no more risks to his wife or his children. The Warrens depart, but they leave behind a warning: without a formal religious intervention to address the demonic entity tied to the land, the property remains spiritually dangerous. The family will not be safe as long as they stay. The Perron family does not undergo a formal exorcism. Roger Perron severs all contact with the Warrens and refuses to allow any religious authority onto the property. The family endures the haunting for 9 more years. 9 years of attacks, 9 years of terror, 9 years of living with entities that will not leave, that cannot be reasoned with, that want them gone, but also seem determined to torment them for as long as they remain. The children grow up in a house where the supernatural is not folklore, but daily reality. They learn to sleep through apparitions. They learn to ignore the cold spots. They learn to live with fear as a constant companion. In 1980, the Perron family finally leaves the farmhouse. They pack their belongings, they load the moving truck, and they drive away from the property that has held them in its grip for a decade. Carolyn Perron later describes the moment they cross the property line as the moment she feels the weight lift. The oppressive presence that has followed her for 10 years releases its hold. She can breathe again. She can think without the constant awareness of being watched. The family begins to heal, though the scars remain. The farmhouse in Harrisville continues its history. New families move in. Some report activity, some do not. The property changes hands multiple times over the following decades. Ed and Lorraine Warren maintain that without formal spiritual intervention, the land remains dangerous, the entities still present, still waiting for the next family to arrive. The Warrens consider the Perron case one of the most significant of their career, evidence that an inhuman intelligence can maintain a grip on a location across centuries, evidence that some places are marked by darkness that does not fade with time. Andrea Perron, the eldest daughter, writes a 3-volume memoir titled House of Darkness, House of Light, providing one of the most detailed first-hand accounts of a long-term haunting ever published. She documents the daily reality of living with the supernatural, the toll it takes on a family, the way it shapes childhood and memory. The memoir becomes a critical resource for researchers and investigators studying prolonged paranormal activity. In 2013, the Perron family's ordeal becomes the basis for The Conjuring, one of the highest-grossing horror films in history. Director James Wan brings the story to a global audience, dramatizing the events that unfolded in the farmhouse. Carolyn Perron attends the film's premiere but has to leave the theater, overcome by the memories the film stirs. The experience, even decades later, remains too raw, too real. The film sparks renewed interest in the case, and the farmhouse becomes a destination for paranormal investigators and enthusiasts from around the world. The property is now privately owned. Tours are occasionally offered. Investigators bring equipment, hoping to capture evidence of the entities the Perron family described. Some report significant activity, others leave with nothing. The farmhouse stands as it has for centuries, weathered and still, holding its secrets close. The Perron case remains a landmark in paranormal research. It demonstrates the capacity for sustained spiritual activity over extended periods. It highlights the dangers of attempting contact with inhuman entities without proper preparation and protection. It reveals the psychological and emotional toll of living in a haunted location, particularly on children who have no choice but to endure what their parents cannot stop. The legacy of Bathsheba Sherman, whether rooted in historical fact or in folklore that hardened into belief, continues to influence the property. The curse she reportedly placed upon the land, if such a curse ever existed, has manifested in the suffering of multiple families across generations. The Perrons were not the first to endure the darkness of that place, and they were not the last. If you found this case compelling, subscribe to Vanishing Roads for more documented paranormal investigations from around the world. This story was created with AI assistance based on documented case files. All events reference real investigations and reported incidents.